I'm Mark Fournier,
Cynthia Young.
and we're the parents of Mark Fournier.
It was a struggle to try to get him help and the resources that he needed to be successful. He went to a very large school, over 1,100 students, and the resources were stretched thin. So when it came to Mark, because of where he's at on the spectrum, there wasn't any resources left for him to receive. And he had a lot of amazing teachers. I don't blame the teachers at all, but it's just the way the system is set up. There's not enough resources for everybody to get what they need. So it was very frustrating as parents to see him struggle.
We have a son who's 20 now, and he had a friend who was dyslexic, and he was in his second or third year here. We knew he was away at school, but we didn't know where. And then we found out this was where he was at and what they specialized in. And so we said, let's give this a go and go down and at least go for a tour and see what it's all about. We came for the tour, it's I remember it well because it was so accommodating. It was Saturday of Easter weekend, and Daniel was here with his daughter and took us on the tour. We got to see everything, and it was probably a little less overwhelming for Mark at the time because there wouldn't have been as many kids here if we'd come through the week when there was a lot more students here. So it was minimal people here, and we got to see everything. And then when we picked him up after the test drive, he was, I don't say he was the Mark of old, but he was pretty close to the Mark of old with, smiling, joking.
Probably a lot of changes in his confidence. He was happier, more self-confident. We say, like, in the regular school system, he'd lost his smile. He was a very happy child. And then...
Yeah, he had an experience in middle school where the teacher was more or less wanted him to suppress his feelings. Mark never had a whole lot of outbursts in school. He was very compliant. He'd be the kid that would sit there and say nothing and do nothing, but he wouldn't cause a disturbance on a regular basis. Not saying he never did. And so this one teacher was more or less forcing him to suppress his feelings, and that's when he lost his smile, because he wouldn't show his anger and he wouldn't show his happiness. And something that we missed. The student life team here is top notch. That was part of it gave us peace of mind knowing that who was here, their backgrounds. Like Mr. West, we knew Mr. West. He might have started 3 or 4 months before Mark did, so he was just as new as Mark was, to the school. But he had a background working with kids in group home settings, so that gave us, peace of mind knowing that this is the people that we have here looking after Mark. And the activities they plan. It's if the student does not want to participate in a weekend activity, they don't have to. It's at their comfort level. But there's always a variety, and it's well organized, and you don't worry about the student's safety. I think the biggest change, in Mark's life is, he has a future now that he probably wouldn't have had if he had to stay at his high school in New Brunswick. He's going to get a high school diploma that he's earned, and it wasn't given to him to get him out the door by making his courses easier and stuff. This is a diploma that he's earned and has opened up doors. He's taking chemical technology this fall in BCC. Stayed in his school in New Brunswick. he probably wouldn't have been allowed to take chemistry because the resources were not there to help. And hopefully it's the same as last year. Chemistry is his highest mark, in the mid-90s. So that's something that he enjoys. And I think as for Cynthia and I, it's opened up our eyes to his potential. We always knew your kids. You always want the best for your kids, and we always knew that Mark could do it. But not having the resources in New Brunswick to get him to the point for this graduation, it's very frustrating, and you almost fall into the status quo where, okay, so Mark's going to live with us forever, and we'll have to support him because he's just going to not be able to move on to the next chapter of his life. I think now with graduating here from Landmark East, like many doors have opened, as I've said in the past. The doors of Landmark East never close. They just open the doors to other opportunities.